that Israel did launch attack on Damascus, targeting the Iranian activists, or for them, they call them terrorists. Other people will differ. And Iran saying those were diplomats. And therefore, Iran had to retaliate using the international law that points to the fact that no country must attack another country's territory. And when you look at the embassies or the consul general officers, they are part of what you call foreign territory. If you take a decision now to go to the U.S. embassy, perhaps avoiding to be deported or something, you cannot be arrested by that country in the vicinity or in the precinct of the U.S. Embassy, and therefore they are saying they were retaliating. Now the issue here is that the double standard that's being applied by the international community. When Israel attacked Gaza, Rafah, there were no hard talk in terms of squeezing Israel in relation to sanctions, and that's what people are now saying.
So let's understand this. You're right. Israel attacked Gaza. We understand what happened on October 7th, but I think everybody agrees that the response was completely disproportional, and that continues. And neither the USA and the allies have been critical of Israel on that one there. Now, the relationship between Israel and Iran has been, well, frosty is really a very mild word. They've been at loggerheads for a long, long time. I think since the Shah of Iran was expelled from Iran a long, long time ago. I think around 1990, if I'm not mistaken, right? And sanctions have been imposed on the US, on Iran by the USA in all that period, and it's just been lifted fairly recently, isn't it?
Yes, and that is why people are talking about the double standards globally, how these big countries, particularly the developed north, and if you trim it down to the G7, are operating in terms of punishing countries if they believe that the countries have violated international law or a country has done something wrong. When you look at their friends, they don't apply similar pressure and mechanism. The United States of America is on record saying that Israel, in terms of the attacks in Gaza, they are too heavy. And you'd recall a few weeks ago, there was even fear that the relationship between Israel and the U.S. is becoming frosty because Joe Biden was adamant that what Israel is doing is just too much. But all of a sudden, there's this shift. And therefore, this speaks to the world that is not fair and there's no fair play. And therefore, I think that's the argument from the other people.
Well, sanctions are meant to hurt and to change people's opinions about the way they do things, okay? How will this change, in your opinion? How will this change, Iran's position, specifically with regard to Israel, and how will this impact the Iranian economy and what they can and cannot do?
Well, Iran is used to these tough measures, but fortunately this time around, they have just joined BRICS, and therefore they've built a bigger friendship with other countries, and some of those countries are members of the G7. Some of them are members of G20. You know that the very same U.S. took similar decisions in relation to Russia. In fact, yesterday, Janet Yellen said that they will again seize assets of Russia and use what will be accrued to give loan to Ukraine. The reality is these countries are used to it, and there has been a power block in relation to BRICS, and its main focus is trade and investment, and they don't go by the rules of the North. And therefore, I think what Iran is going to do, it will do exactly what Russia has done, strengthen relations with China, strengthen relations with Russia. I read just now that there's going to be a diplomatic meeting in Russia. Iranians are going there to meet. And therefore you can see they've started building relations within the developing South and also within BRICS. And therefore it becomes a problem. But that doesn't take away the fact that the North is still powerful and the North will continue to exercise its might.
Do you think, Sophie, do you think that as Iran looks at the implications of the potential sanctions and knowing that they've suffered with it for a long, long time, right, that will this ease tensions or will this in fact escalate tensions in the Middle East?
It will escalate tensions in the Middle East. It will escalate tensions in the Middle East. And you know that even when Israel issued a statement that they are going to hit back, Iran was saying we'll actually do what we did 10 times fold. And therefore it's part of the tension that has escalated. And now Israel itself finds itself in a very awkward position because it has threatened to retaliate. It now has to implement what it said it will do, but the allies are saying you are going to cause a huge crisis for yourself and the region in general, and that will have impact on us. That's America, that's UK, that's Germany saying it. So the issue here is that nothing is going to change Iran. I mean, Iran, you know that President Raisi pointed out, even during the BRICS summit, that he is not going to take instructions from the North. So therefore, it is going to, when you isolate a person, you create a problem because that person can be even more dangerous. Better bring him closer so that you can manage him. The same with these countries.
Well, I mean, but the flip side is many say sanctions help. That's why South Africa has pushed for sanctions in some form against Israel. Part of the BDS movement have done the same thing. There is a school of thought that says sanctions do actually work. Okay, but here's the last thing, Sophie, before I let you go. The Iranian diplomat, I think Mustafa Daryabari, made the point today that South Africa very much is a friend of Iran, and he mentioned the BRICS countries as well. So just lastly, in 30 seconds, has South Africa responded to the American threat of sanctions against Iran?
Not yet. The only response that we got from Minister of International Relations and the President, it was during the attack, the South Africa, Pretoria, saying that they did warn countries that this tension will escalate. If you don't resolve the Palestinian question, you will find a situation where that region, the Gulf region, the Middle East, will continue to be unstable.
That's where we can leave it. Sophie McQueen, as always, thanks for your time. SABC's international news editor. What do you make of that? Sanctions against Iran by the USA? Again? Good thing? Bad thing? You tell me. This is the National Pulse.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one Outsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone Outsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Teigedal, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Join Smile Foundation for a movie night under the stars featuring Sing 2 on Saturday, 20th of April at Old Ed Sports Grounds. To book, visit smilefoundationsa.org. This is an SABC supported initiative.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Do you agree with what Coach Rulani Mokoena has said, or do you think the Swallows' goals were legitimate goals? Give us your thoughts on the show.
Rulani is being childish. He has just benefited from what was seen to be a goal. He never said anything about the refereeing, despite the fact that most people who saw that thing could still say it's a goal. Here he is now. He's crying over a draw, not even losing the game.
Mamelodi Sundowns has been benefiting from bad officiating of referees. Now Rulani Mokoena is complaining because of bad refereeing. This has been going on for some time. Sundowns have been benefiting.
Top Sport on SAFM. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So there was an end of March deadline, but now the Community Scheme Ombud Service has warned unregistered community schemes that operating without registration with the Ombud Service can result in serious legal consequences. Let's find out more about it with Temelihle Mbata, the acting chief ombud. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you
for having me.
What is what is the issue here? What's the big concern?
The big concern is that we have a lot of unregistered schemes in the country, quite a sizable number. The Community Schemes on the Service Act has been in operation since 2011, but we've opened our doors as a service around 2016, but there's still a bit of a lag behind schemes registering and complying with the law.
And you want to change that. What then is the work of, when we talk about community schemes and these other schemes you refer to, what do you do?
Okay, so the CSOS is short for Community Scheme Ombud Service. We are a regulator and both an ombud service for community schemes. Just to break down what community schemes are for the layman, as defined by the Act, it's your homeowners association, so estates, block of flats if you stay in townhouse, establishments, retirement villages, housing cooperatives, and shared block schemes. You generally in a gated community or a sectional title, you form part of the definition of a community scheme.
Okay, that makes it very clear. So they and what is yours the umbrella body of that of those schemes?
So the CSOS is
the
regulator.
In this case, yeah.
The ombud and the regulator. So what we mandated to do is provide education, information, and training, like we're doing now. We're creating awareness for basic information, such as the fact that they need to register with the CSOS to comply with the law. And we also regulate and manage the documentation. So the rules that apply in these setups, we quality assure them to ensure that they're in line with the constitution of the country. And we then also provide dispute resolution services.
Okay.
So
the example you gave, by and large, these schemes operate in residential communities. So it may not be a suburb which is open, but essentially it's a community of people coming together. What would be their motivation for not registering their scheme?
I think it's really not malicious non-compliance. They may not be aware that they need to comply with the law. They may not be aware that they need to comply with the CSOS Act. And really, they are essentially paying over levies to us. And it's really more education and awareness and ensuring that they know that they need to comply with the law.
And the cost factors to register and then, beyond registration, is there an ongoing monthly payment they need to make?
So to register, it's free. Any scheme can come register their scheme with us. There's no cost to that. But in your levy statement, you pay something called levies every month. A portion of that levy comes through to the CSOS for the protection of the consumer.
So would the scheme have to pay, or individuals that form part of the scheme?
The individuals that form part of the scheme, normally they would appoint a board of trustees or a managing agent to do that service for them, look after the scheme. Then that particular body then pays over to us.
And give us some ballpark figures about what sort of levy cost that would be.
Levy cost, we charge a minimum of 2% on your administrative levy to a maximum of 40 Rand per household or per sectional title. So the maximum you'll pay over to CSOS is about 40 Rand, but that's just the minimum amount that's based on your current levy. You could be paying 500 Rand, you could be paying 1,000 Rand. 2% of that to the maximum of 40 Rand.
So is it not a case of those that don't know conveniently don't know because they really don't want to pay another 500 Rands or more from their monthly bill to a scheme that they may not see having any benefit for them?
Yes, so it could be a mix of both, but there are consequences. Now we're saying, since we are making you aware of this, you can no longer rely on ignorance and not knowing. It's now blatantly really disregarding the law. And the consequences of that could be a fine or imprisonment.
Okay, and if they need to contact you now to avoid all of those, where can they connect with you?
Okay, so for more information, because we've got limited time, you can write to us on email, info@csos.org.za. But you can also go through our website, which is www.csos.org.za. And we have a toll-free number, 0800 000 653.
Got that. Let's see who calls. Demelitle Mbata, the acting chief ombud for the community scheme ombud service. There you are. Many of these services is groupings together, people at community level, in fact, not registered as they should be, and there's a warning for them. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ann Musa.
In our top stories, talks underway to minimize job losses at the post office, and UAE sees heaviest rainfall in 75 years. Good afternoon. Minister for Employment and Labour Tulas Ngesi says talks are underway to minimize job losses at the post office as 235 branches are facing closure. Ngesi was speaking during the launch of the Western Cape Labour Activation Programme in Cape Town. The aim is to alleviate poverty through training unemployed individuals and providing assistance to distressed companies. During his address, Ngesi acknowledged that unemployment levels in the country are unacceptable high, and as thousands of post office workers are facing unemployment, he announced that plans are underway with the Department of Communications and Telecommunication to curb the blow.
There is a plan which is being put together, which is around the issue of retraining those workers who are still young and rediverting them. The post office is talking about digitization, and we think that retraining those workers and redirecting them into the new areas which demand these technical skills, digital skills, is going to be able to help. So they are not just going to be dumped.
The Legal Division of Parliament says it has found most of the public submissions on the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill are rejecting the proposed changes. The envisaged changes on the Bella Bill make significant amendments to the South African Schools Act of 1996 and the Educators Employment Act of 1998. The National Council of Provinces has completed its public consultation process throughout all provinces. It tasked the Parliamentary Legal Services to look at various concerns that were raised during the public submissions and give feedback to the Select Committee on Education. Senior Legal Advisor Pumela Ngema says it's however difficult to identify the reasons behind the rejections made.
How does the views suggest that the DBE, the legislature, and the National Council of Provinces and the First House, the National Assembly, which has already processed this bill, and as the Select Committee is the extension of the NCOP, how has these structures of government failed, or the provincial legislatures failed to comply with the constitutional obligations and the law that I have set out? I think that is the main question that we are trying to answer today, to assist the committee.
Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane has confirmed the department was not aware and did not authorize the camping trip where two learners from Davidton Skills School in Ekurhuleni drowned. The two learners, aged 15 and 17, were part of 90 special needs learners who were attending a discipline camp at the Henops River in Centurion in Pretoria, organized by an NGO, Rising Stars Generation. None of the teachers were part of the camp, and they were only accompanied by a social worker with no life jacket. Chilwane further elaborates.
The first thing, obviously, that I look for when such an incident is brought to my attention is where the steps followed. And the district came back. In fact, the region, Ekurhuleni chief director said he was not aware. The district director was not aware. The second manager was not aware. The ITSO, which is next in line, the one who's monitoring that school, he didn't even know that there was a school trip. So the school didn't apply.
On World Haemophilia Day today, parents are urged to be more vigilant of signs of haemophilia in the early stages of their child's development. It's an inherited genetic disorder that prevents blood from forming a stable clot, resulting in little or no clotting. When a person is injured, they will have a prolonged bleeding as they do not have the factor needed to make a firm clot. Common symptoms include excessive bruising that lasts for weeks, mouth bleeds and bleeding into joints, soft tissues and muscles. Gauteng Health Department's Kutso Rabutata.
About 30% of boys with haemophilia may have no history of the disorder. However, most mothers of these children will have a male blood relative on the maternal side of their family who were born with it. Gauteng Health has 4 specialized clinics that provides diagnosis and treatment for haemophilia patients.
And finally, authorities across the United Arab Emirates are clearing up debris after what the government has described as the heaviest rainfall in 75 years. Although the weather has improved since yesterday, Dubai International Airport says it was still facing significant disruptions. The BBC's Meta Tsikrika reports.
Travelers have desperately tried to leave Dubai after flooding threatened to overwhelm parts of the usually arid city on Tuesday. Although the weather has improved, in Dubai International Airport, one of the world's busiest, flights continue to be delayed or diverted. Passengers were warned not to travel to the airport. Inside, the terminal is overcrowded. Pictures online show people sleeping on the floor as they wait for flights.
Recapping the top story, Minister for Employment and Labour Tulas Nesi says talks are underway to minimise job losses at the post office as 235 branches are facing closure. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And coming up in your sports, SuperSport United desperate to get back to winning ways against Polokwane City, and South Africa women's indoor hockey team unveiled. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The M1 northbound in Melrose is queuing towards Colette Drive. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg has a crash before Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a stationary truck just before Rand Airport Interchange. And the N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash reported near Allendale Road exit. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 in both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Cliffdale area. The R620 is closed in the central Margate area due to storm damage, and Bel-Air Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions near Chief Albert Lutulier Hospital. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards the M5 Kubik interchange. The M3 Philip Khosana Drive outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. Albert Road is slow moving through Woodstock. Turfel Road is slow moving through Hanover Park, and Strand Street outbound is slow moving towards High Level Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Attention to all music lovers. The highly anticipated Metro FM Music Awards are finally here.
Y'all ready?
Purchase your tickets to gain access to the awards ceremony and the live concert happening on the 27th of April 2024 at Mbombela Stadium, Mpumalanga.
Yo, we about to have some fun in here.
You can now secure your tickets from 300 Rand at www.computicket.co.za.
Yeah, man, this is a big night.
With a star-studded lineup of DJs and live performances, don't miss your chance to be part of this unforgettable celebration of talent and music excellence.
Come on, Mbombela, come through. Let's do this.
Hashtag MMA24, Black to the Future. Metro FM, it's where you want to be.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about FOMI, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely boss man. And she can earn up to 12.6% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app in less than 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC 1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial star 120 star 332# to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC 1.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Incredibly, it's not day 11 that I'm hosting this show. Certainly, fingers on the pulse, pulse on the nation. What do you think? What are the big issues that are really getting your blood racing today? You can connect with me. We've had lots of chats around the impending Iranian sanction by the USA. There's been conversations around the Turkish trade delegation in South Africa, which is an important one. There has also been this issue about the Labour Party of South Africa applying to have the election postponed. We will have a conversation about that part 2 coming up after 5. Don't miss that. But in all those things, you have your opinions. Also, I mean, that points that, in fact, we did ask that question lightheartedly. Arsenal or Man City, which game are you watching tonight? And you tell me why. But also, if you have a thought on that conversation I had with regarding the issues of these community organizations that need to pay their dues to be part of a broader umbrella body, and they're not doing so. Any thoughts on that? We'll get an update on terrible news about killings in Khayelitsha coming up pretty shortly. And then later on, a leading professor and political commentator says South Africa could well become a failed state by 2030. We will talk to that person just after 4:30 or so. So, well, I don't say I should look forward to talking to him, but we certainly need to find out more about why he says what he says. Let's, however, start with the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial update. Now, this is important, okay? Cell phone data analyst Gideon Gous says phone records shows that the accused in the Senzo Meyiwa case were in communication with each other. Note it. Gous was testifying on the contents from cell phones that were allegedly found in possession of 2 of the accused while they were incarcerated. So 5 men, as you would know, are on trial at the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria for that 2014 murder of the Bafana captain at the time. Pearl Magumani joins us now to give us the very latest. Pearl, as always, good talking to you, and I'm sure another hectic day for you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Yes, today we heard testimony from Gideon Gous, who's a data analyst, and the phones that he reviewed allegedly belong to 2 of the accused and were seized while they were incarcerated. Now, this is work that was carried on from data analyst Stein, who testified last year in the trial. However, he's gone on retirement, and Gideon just takes over from that and was here to update the court on his findings. And one of the things that he was able to pick up from analyzing the data is that the accused have been in communication with each other, and the numbers that he had picked up were numbers that Brigadier Gelinda, who's the lead investigating officer, went to verify and check. And it was found that they had been in communication with each other. This is contrary to what they had said in the beginning of the trial, when they all denied knowing each other and said that, they were put together and only knew about each other when they got to court. So it proves, these new records now prove that they actually have a relationship prior to the killing. And even during while they were incarcerated, we've heard that there was some communication to other inmates while they were still imprisoned. They were still communicating with each other.
And I take it that's quite significant, isn't it?
Yes, it is, given the fact that, they said that, one, they were not together on a set date and they did not have any relations to each other. So now this brings to question the fact that, are they friends? Are they, people that, organize this crime together and so forth? So I think it just cements or strengthens the state's case in the sense of that they all came together and were together allegedly on the fateful night when Mayua was shot and killed.
So bottom line, no coincidence. I mean, I think that's what they would try and determine, right? Anything else come up?
Yes, the state also questioned the host about a conversation between one of the accused, Fisoguhle Ntuli, with Kelly Khumalo. We heard from Stein last year that Ntuli did communicate with Kelly Khumalo, allegedly using that handset. And what Stein has confirmed is that that conversation allegedly happened in August of 2014. Mayua was killed in October that same year, and they had a conversation that lasted about 2 minutes. And however, the defense has questioned the method that was used to verify the calls, one being Truecaller, saying that somebody can just take a SIM card and register it as, with a different number and rename it on Truecaller. So therefore, it can be, said for sure that that handset or those numbers or SIM cards that were used belonged to the accused. And now we've adjourned, and he's expected back on the stand just to continue with cross-examination from the defense.
Okay, shall we leave it at that? Anything else?
No, I think that is all that came out from today, and we shall see what comes out from tomorrow's cross-examination from the defense attorney.
And if that's the case, we're bound to talk to you then. Pearl Magubani, SABC News reporter, and let's see how that case finally reaches its logical conclusion, if I can say that. Interesting enough, by the way, for those who say that the issue of Eskom having no load shedding is a pure political issue meant to appease us so that we can be very happy and satisfied in the run-up to the election and watch what will happen on the 1st of June. You see, you may or may not be right. Well, I don't think you're right, okay? Let me say that much. But if that's the case, then government would want to get everything else in place. Now, why do I say that? Is because I've just got to notice about the Brixton Reservoir in Johannesburg, okay? And that reservoir outlet's being closed, again, because of huge issues around water, that is, right? And as a result of that, it'll be closed tonight until later on, okay? So that's my point, From an infrastructure point of view, if you want to appease the masses on election deadline day, which is today, because every day now is election deadline day, then what you would be doing is identifying the 5 key problems and ensuring that none of those problems exist. So here you are. You don't have a lice problem, but you still have a water problem. Certainly the people of Joburg have a water problem, and we certainly know that. Let's get some callers as well. Solomon, you want to talk about the USA? Go ahead, Solomon.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
I want to talk about the double standard demonstrated by the bloc of those who are superpowers of the world. And they are not assisting in terms of bringing international justice and stability, because each and every time they are biased, and this leads to the instability on the Middle East and everywhere else. And what is surprising is that everyone else is in the majority in exclusion, or with the exception of the North and the West. If only we can cooperate and collaborate so that we build a bloc, come up with our own plan, our own vision, because we shall never find any fairness and justice from any other bloc led by U.S. and her allies.
Well, look, I think the issue of the USA, you're right, is fraught with contradictions. And then the United Nations, I think the intention is good, but the fact that there's a significant veto with certain members of the Security Council is problematic. Now, here's the flip side of that in terms of you saying form another bloc. Is the BRICS coming together and now extending from 5 to more, not the beginning of a different bloc that will actually challenge global hegemony?
Yeah, it does bring a breath of fresh air when you look at the global balance of powers, balance of forces, because the UN was primarily established to ensure that the agenda by the West is sustained against the East and whatsoever. So if BRICS can only be built painstakingly take time to build it, it can become a block formidable enough to ensure that we get rid of this biasness and double standard by the U.S. Look, Israel attacked the consulate in Damascus of Iran, and there was no outcry. And even media, when reporting, when the Security Council said, media, including yourself, said the world leaders lashed out and criticized Iran, when in fact it was not a balanced reporting. There were countries or ambassadors from China, Russia, and everywhere else who submitted a balanced view in terms of calling for restraint by powers that are involved in the furor.
Okay, got that. And you certainly have us all thinking. Appreciate that. So there we are, the national pulse, the global pulse in this case here regarding the USA. But it impacts South Africa, and you know that, right? Because of our own pronouncements with South Africa. But let me flip this around, okay? Is there anybody who's listening, you, who has a view contrary to Solomon? Solomon's the wise man. Do you think you're wiser to say, hold it, man? This point about America being duplicitous in how they carry out their foreign policy is wrong. America is doing exactly what they should be doing, and they spot on with regard to the handling of Iran because of X, Y, Z. If you have that opinion or another, even in support of Solomon, then I certainly want to know about it. But and the broader issue around that one is, what then are the implications again for geopolitics all around the world? 086 000 2032, and then you can also tweet us, tag SFM Radio on the X platform. You can tag me, Ashraf Garda. Do not forget to use the hashtag The National Pulse. Do not forget to tell me where you are as well. Love to know where in the country you are today. 0614 104 107 if you're WhatsApping, text or voice note. In fact, there's some interesting voice notes that I think you need to hear.
Royal AM ladies and Lindelani ladies want to showcase who are the real queens of KZN. They both want out of the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Experience the KZN Derby, Royal AM Ladies FC versus Lindelani Ladies FC on Sunday 21 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
Can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite and rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
Hi guys, your favorite mom vlogger here, talking all things family entertainment with Deal or No Deal now on SABC2 weekdays at 6:30 p.m. Umalume is trying to make it onto the show and have his life changed quick. Amandla Malume. Mama and I are the #1 Mubango fans at 9 p.m. all week because the storylines stay hot. And my two little people can't wait for May when Raid the Cage kicks off with SABC2. See La Familia, keeping those family bonds strong. Until next time.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, we're going to talk about the killings in Khayelitsha in a moment or so. I did say there's a range of voice notes, and I'd love first-time callers. If you've never called before, well, every reason for you to call now. Here's a voice note.
Ashraf, yesterday, Minister of Police, DA, ANC, PA, Good Party, they were in Hanover Park in the community hall, visiting the community that is affected by the gangsterism there, and the communities, they asked them what they can do to minimize that crime. None of them had a good answer. Instead of talking the truth, because Ashraf, the only thing that can minimize the gangsterism in our location is to get the soldiers from the national government to back up the police, nothing else. I did that thing successfully when I was still in the army. The soldiers, they cannot just go and kill people. There's a discipline in the army. Thanks, Ashraf.
Okay. In fact, did you watch that that town hall meeting in Hanover Park? Phew. You just have to watch it. And maybe our next conversation is even more relevant in the context of that. So, police in Cape Town reporting that 5 people have been killed in a mass shooting in Harare. That's in Khayelitsha, right? So, what's the story? What's caused it? Let's find out more about it with Inditini Tiido, who's the community activist in the Khayelitsha region, also former chairperson of the Khayelitsha Development Forum. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Right, so I mean, it is incredibly disturbing. I mean, so I saw the Hanover Park outburst against the police minister yesterday, and then you get again 5 killings overnight in Khayelitsha. I mean, these type of mass killings are just ongoing, isn't it?
It is very much. It is terrible indeed, Ashraf, because it does too many things to communities. One of the things it does. It dissuades investment to the area, which then leads to a number of things, to scarcity of jobs, investors running away, even community members themselves living in fear. But you see, my comment on the display that was given there, or the unfortunate scene that we've seen on those platforms. Sometimes when people are given sponsored political views, they cloud the issues that must be dealt with. This morning I went there, actually 8 people died, not only 5.
So is it not 5? So and I've got 8. There one woman, 4 men, all shot, and you're saying it's
others, and 3 others just a short distance away from the 5.
Sure.
So they 8. So when you experience that, Ashraf, you don't even have time to even want to play the political tennis ball with the realities that what that does to communities. What Khayelitsha, areas like Khayelitsha in the Cape Town, in the Cape Metropole case, what it needs is a deliberate program on crime prevention initiatives, not one. Many things. One that will galvanize the community so that communities remain vigilant, so that communities can also help work with the police, identify would-be criminals before any lives would have been lost.
Well, in this case here, I mean, do you know what the cause was? The cause was this time round?
At the moment, Ashraf, we do not know, and we do not like to offer views so that we dilute police's investigation on these types of things.
Fair enough, yeah. Okay, but your point about a deliberate or intentional crime prevention program. Now, you know, it's honourable, but you know, I could really copy and paste your comment and repeat it with 20 people in the last 5 years. They're all saying the same thing. Do you get a sense of a sense of helplessness with regard to how the South African Police Service is able to investigate after the event, but very importantly, to set up structures to prevent killings in the first place, to ensure that we have safe zones?
Look, Ashraf, it is really not crime prevention is not really the police's only responsibility. There will be people such as social development, the city of Cape Town, the Western Cape provincial government, all stakeholders coming together. Because the thing is that if, for instance, you've got a community which is polarized as of last night, as they were, nobody's going to report nothing to the cops because they are scared, they are fearing for their lives. And the area is still dark at night. The area of Harare, there's still an issue there. There are 4 CCTV cameras. At the time of reporting, when the murders were reported, that video footage or CCTV footage has not already been given over to SARS for expedited investigations, because there is this politicking between the city of Cape Town and the Federal Police Services, as well as the provincial government of the Western Cape. Mm-hmm. The peculiarity of Cape Town, Ashraf, makes being governed even painful. Because you've got an issue where there will still be resistance between one level of government to the other. or having to give one giving the other access to the resources. For instance, Cape Town is reported to have what is called now Eye on the Sky, and all the other new technologies that has been bandied about. But in 8 lives were lost, and nothing that has been proven to be working on all of those.
So here's the thing, in 30 seconds, we're going to wrap up now. Outside of these, what seems to be perennial problems, right? What's the sense of community in Khayelitsha when people go around with their daily lives? I mean, so the negative would be there's a war zone, but is there a far brighter story than that?
Look, we're trying to live our lives in Khayelitsha under the hashtag 7784, which is our area code. Khayelitsha is not a jungle, because we will live here, and we will never succumb to pressures of criminals and criminality. All we ask is better coordination by all 3 spheres of government, working with community structures in preventing crime from happening in our community.
I agree with you. Let's keep it that. All we're asking is keep people alive. Do not let people die because of shootings and violence. Let them die natural deaths. And that's really the nub of the issues around safety. Thank you for your time. Most appreciated, Inditini Tiyido, who's a community activist in Khayelitsha. In fact, he's saying, and the former chairperson of the Khayelitsha Development Forum, he's saying, in fact, 8 people have died, all shot overnight. Sure. Let's get the news headlines now. It's just gone 4:30. Here's Ann Musa.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, private security company G4S intends to appeal the ruling by the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, excluding it from fully participating in the court proceedings relating to a court battle over the terminated Mangaung prison contract. Minister for Employment and Labour Tulas Nxesi says talks are underway to minimize job losses at the post office as 235 branches are facing closure. And a UN agency says racism and sexism continue to play a huge role in the health of women and girls. Details on these and other stories at 5 with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, some advance notice with regards to the R21 in Clayville. There will be weekend closures, so the road will be closed between Nelma Pierce Drive and Olifantsfontein Road from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Saturday and 6 a.m. until 12 noon on Sunday for Eskom works. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg has a crash just before Crown Interchange reported, and the N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash after Geldnes Interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M13 eastbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions at the N3 Paradise Valley Interchange, and the N3 is roadworks with major upgrade works between Spaghetti Junction and the M13 Paradise Valley Interchange. In Cape Town, Waltervreden Drive in Mitchell's Plain is closed between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road. Brighton Road in Kraaifontein is slow moving at the N1 highway. Section Street eastbound is queuing towards Pardon Island Road, and Turfield Road in Newfields is slow moving near the M7 Jakes Harville Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, what are you going to talk about now?
Well, we start things off with football this time around, and SuperSport United utility player Lala K says that he's depending on the senior players in the team to help them get out of the current slump. Matsatsanza hosts Polokwane City tonight in the DStv Premiership, having only managed 1 win in 10 matches from all competitions, and Lakay believes that the team has enough experienced players to help them turn things around.
For us senior players that understand, and that have been in that situation before, everybody knows we haven't won in maybe 5 or 6 games now. It's important for us to get ourselves out of it, and it takes 1 game.
Well, the dip in form has seen SuperSport slide down the table to 6th place with 8 matches to go, which puts their ambitions to achieve a cap spot in doubt. And for Lekay, they can't afford to drop any more points.
It's crucial this time of the season to pick up points, and hopefully, and for sure, I believe, and the players also believe we can get ourselves out of it, especially now starting with this one. It's reality, it's the truth, we haven't won And I think, we just have to give more. You just have to keep on. There's nothing else you can do. You just have to. We just have to show character. And it takes that one game. To turn everything around. I've been in this situation before personally.
On to rugby, Wales' most kept hooker and oldest captain, Ken Owens, has retired at the age of 37. Owens played 91 internationals for Wales and 5 tests for the British and Irish Lions on 2 tours. He won 4 Six Nations titles, including 2 Grand Slams, appeared at 3 World Cups, and he won a league title with Scarlets, but has been sidelined for almost a year by a back injury. In tennis, Andy Murray has been named on the entry list of the French Open. 3-time Grand Slam champion Murray ruptured ankle ligaments at the Miami Open last month. Now, the French Open starts on the 26th of May, and Murray has played at Roland Garros only once since hip resurfacing surgery in 2019, losing in the first round in 2020. So it'll be interesting to see how he's going to perform this time around, if he actually plays at the French Open. Then in hockey news, South Africa have named the squad for the African Hockey Indoor Cup of Nations, scheduled to take place at Swakopmund at the end of May. The team boasts an abundance of experience, totaling an impressive combined 518 indoor hockey test caps. Now, following their remarkable performance in the 2023 World Cup, where they secured a spot in the semi-finals, South Africa has set its side on clinching victory, with the top 2 teams in Swakopmund earning a coveted ticket to Croatia. This tournament serves as the African qualifier for the highly anticipated FIH Indoor Hockey World Cup set to unfold in Croatia in 2025. On that note, it's a wrap from my side. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Kapele.
And as you said, 100 days to go. 100 days to go to the Olympic Games. Have you ever been to Olympic Games?
I haven't. I'd love to go.
I don't know if I haven't been, but I don't know if I want to go.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, I'd love it. I'd love to see certain events like swimming and athletics if South Africa's participating, and maybe the 100-meter sprint and the marathons. But I don't think I've got the... It's very different from organised single sport events.
Like World Cups, football.
Yeah, like, rugby, cricket.
I think it's just nice. It's like a kid in a candy store. You get to see everything.
Yeah, but that's the trouble when you see everything like a kid in a candy store. You get a sore tooth before you know it. So no, I'll stick with my single sport events. I wonder what you think. Would you ever go to an Olympic Games? We've never hosted it in this country. You know that. We wanted to, we didn't. 0614 104 107 to WhatsApp, text or voice note us on all the issues we've been speaking about. You can call in 086 000 2032.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets with Makwe Masilela, as always, Chief Investment Officer at the Makwe Fund Managers. Hi, Makwe.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Yeah, good afternoon. Right, you've got some big news to start with, right, about yearly trading.
Yeah, it seems this is a metals alloy supplier to the steel sector, as well as the ceramic linings to the cement, paper and pulp, steel and platinum industries. And I'm saying it's a small cap because the market value of that company is just around 320 million. And apart from port and logistical challenges, the company was also affected by lower than expected commodity prices, higher interest rates, load shedding, and the ban on exports of recycled metals, but the intense focus on cost savings that managed to yield some benefits, offsetting the impact of the above challenges. Hence, they only expect their profits as headline earnings per share to fall by 60%, as it could have been worse.
Right, so that's the one thing. Then you also have some news about global and local and global markets, right?
Yeah, remember yesterday was not a good day, on the JSE, the market closed down a whopping 2%. And yesterday when the Fed chief said that it will likely take longer to have confidence that inflation is headed towards their 2% target, the remarks represented a shift in his message. And that's after a key measure of inflation exceeding forecasts for a third month in a row. And after starting the year by pricing in as many as at least 1.5% interest rate declines. Market participants are now doubtful that we'll even get a 0.5% reduction. And so the message is simple, and that is from the de facto global interest rate setter, that is the US, that they can wait as long as needed before cutting interest rates. And we saw the UK March consumer inflation missing expectations of 3.1%, but slowed to 3.2% from 3.4%. And if inflation continues to fall, that will add pressure on the Bank of England to cut interest rates. And back home here, our inflation dipped to a 2-month low, that is to 5.3% from 5.6%. But Ashraf, it is unlikely to persuade our central bank to cut interest rates, as the drop might be short-lived because of these high oil prices and renewed weaknesses when it comes to the rand. And after declining by 2% in January, our February retail sales fell by 0.8%, and this is the second month in a row that we see some declines. And markets seems to be absorbing those comments that came out of the US Fed and now focusing on company results. Oil prices extended losses as worries about global demand that is due to the weak economic momentum in China, and also we saw a rise in US stockpiles that outweighed supply fears that have been coming out of the Middle East. Brent crude is down 1% at $89 a barrel, and gold is range bound as Middle East tension seems to be not spreading for now. And we see the yellow metal is up a mere 0.1% at 2,387, but platinum is down 1.8% at 952. The DAX is up 0.3%, FTSE up 0.6%, the CAC up 1%, the Dow, just like the S&P and the JSE, they are up 0.1%. As we said, the JSE yesterday closed down 2%, and with our resources today up 2.6%, trying to rebound from the 3.5% loss that we realized yesterday. But our financials are down 1.3%, industrials are down 0.3%, and the rand is flat. It's 1902 to the US dollar, 23.69 to the pound, and 20.24 to the euro.
Okay, that's it. Looking at that interest rate story, that's important. But we'll have another check on the markets coming up in about an hour's time. As always, Makwe Masilela, thank you for your time. Right, let's get into other issues. In fact, here's an interesting one. We are going to talk about this important issue around South Africa's, failed state scenario in 2030 coming up shortly. But here's I've always asked people, like, where are you listening from, right? And whether you're listening in South Africa, online, on the radio, or around the country, or globally, right? So Dr. Sipho Sithole, once of the SABC, I should say. In fact, he's on a scholarship, I understand, of sorts in Washington. He probably should tell us what he's doing there. So he's listening to us now, and he's saying, so this minister is talking about retraining people at the post office to avoid job losses. Retraining in what if the post office has not articulated what its new business model is? There you are, Sipho Sithole listening from Washington, D.C. Okay, good point, Sipho. Well, there you are. In fact, I've got a post box at the post office, and I was wondering whether I should give out the post box address. I'll find the post office closed. I'm just giving my honest opinion. Let's get another call. We go to Mike from Newlands, right? That's Newlands in the Cape, I gather. Mike, hi.
Look, Ashraf, and I certainly am in Newlands in the Western Cape.
Thank you.
And thanks for a great show. I'm just responding to your question that you posed to your listeners about is the USA doing the right thing. I think.
Yes, I want to get another opinion too. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, my opinion is yes. I think America is doing exactly. Somebody needs to support Israel. The place, Israel itself is not even as big as the Kruger National Park. It certainly is not a country that I think would want to go to war. I've been there a few times. And I think also that if USA and Europe doesn't protect Israel, then we will completely lose the only democracy in the area. And at the same time, we're going to have Iran and other countries, not necessarily all of them, of course, not Jordan and a few others, who are extremely hostile to the West, have threatened the West with nuclear weapons. And I think Israel forms a nice bulwark to that, particularly now that Iran has showed its colors, quite happy to attack Israel and quite happy to, I'm sure, attack another country if and when the time comes. So I support the USA, 100%.
All right. So Mike, I mean, we're not going to have a 1 hour chat. There's just no time, right? But here's the point. So you're saying two things stand out for me. You're saying, somebody has to support them, right? Israel, that is, and they're the only democracy. Now, you know that the only democracy part can be challenged, and therefore it'll be a 1 hour conversation around that, right? The reality is, right, that whatever the problems of a very messy region that the Middle East is, with regard to Israel in its first case, the problem started in initially, with the Balfour Declaration, and then 1948. Now, everything else then is a series of tit for tats.
Yeah, that might be the case, and I'm no expert in Israeli or Middle East history. Ashraf, suffice to say that if you've got a problem with your neighbor, you do not climb over the border and go and slit their throats and rape their children. That's not the way you're going to solve the problem, and unfortunately, that's where we are. I don't know about the past. I can't answer that. Suffice to say, I don't know why Israel, for whatever reason, historically or however it works out, is not allowed to have a piece of land no bigger than the Kruger National Park and be allowed to live in peace.
Okay.
I simply can't understand the hatred that is shown against Israel for such a small nation on such a small piece of land. It's such a big threat to the Arab world. I don't understand.
But Mike, you see, the issue of size is never the issue. Big or small is irrelevant, Kruger Park or not. I think perhaps you need to do a whole study around the impacts of the Balfour Declaration. And the issue of the last part that you made about climbing over the neighbor's wall, you could say the same thing for the Israelis climbing over the other wall. But also issues of raping children, it's been contested. I'm not going to talk about it now because there's no time. It's been heavily contested in terms of how much of it is fact and how much of it has been over-dramatized. I get your point, but perhaps you and I and everybody else, we need to do some additional research into exactly why that problem really exists. Thanks for that call, Mike. Got us thinking. There's another voice note before we get to our guest talking about South Africa's own doomsday scenario. I don't like that. Here's a voice note.
Hi, Ashraf. Just wanted to inquire, a couple of months ago, maybe a year or so, or even more, there were some intercepts of some WhatsApps with some high-powered people in ESCOM, maybe linked to some institution that were organizing breakdowns, and they intercepted some WhatsApps. What happened to that story? Is that just died a death, or is there still some investigation going on? Thanks, Ashraf. Keep up the good work. James, Durban.
Thanks, James. I think because of extended power, load shedding, there's been no power, so the WhatsApps. No, I'm being funny. Okay, I don't know. Let's make a note and find out exactly what that story is all about. But keep the calls coming. Keep the calls coming. Keep the WhatsApps coming in text or voice note form. Keep the tweets coming on the X platform as well, using the hashtag #TheNationalPulse. And you can also comment on our live feeds on Facebook that we do via SFM Radio every single day. So basically, in all different ways, we've got you covered.
I am Dion De Vos, the Executive Mayor of Sarah Baartman District Municipality, and I hereby invite you to comment on the draft Integrated Development Plan and Budget for 2024-2025. The draft IDP and budget are available at municipal offices in the 7 local municipalities of the district and on the municipality's website, sarahbartman.co.za. Comments should be sent via email to idp@sbdm.co.za. Comments close on 22nd April 2024.
Join Smile Foundation for a movie night under the stars featuring Sing 2 on Saturday, 20th of April at Old Ed Sports Grounds. To book, visit smilefoundationsa.org. This is an SABC supported initiative.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's in fact, let me tell you what else we're going to be talking about. So you've probably heard us earlier speaking to the Labour Party and their representative, and they, in fact, are calling for the postponement of the 2024 election. And we'll talk about the reasons just now, okay? There's also been an issue, by the way, for that initial call we had about WhatsApps, right? And we certainly want to play up the issues about marketing, international artificial intelligence, and tech issues on the show, because I think it's such an important thing to land with all of us outside the political spaces. It empowers us from a business point of view. So we're certainly going to cover that coming up later on. However, let's talk now about something that should trouble us, right? So Professor Andre Duvenage, who's a professor of politics and is an analyst based at the Northwest University, has put together a piece in suggesting that South Africa is facing the reality of a full-blown state failure by 2030. Whoa, okay. Let's find out what that really means. Prof. Duvenage, good chatting to you. Well, not good chatting to you for the right reasons, right? Hello.
Ashraf, yes, it's always good talking to you.
Thank you.
And yes, you quote me on a certain way. Basically, I am quoting another grouping. They call themselves Eunomics, and they have the perspective. And according to their analysis, South Africa will be a full-blown failed state around 2030. And I must tell you, according to my own assessment, I am in agreement with that perspective. Now, theoretically, we can differentiate among soft states. That is a state where corruption is prominent. Then the second one is a weak state. Corruption, it cannot safeguard its boundaries, and it cannot function in a developmental way within the geography of the state. And then the third one is where the state as a force is losing control over their territory, where there is basically forces developing against the existing state. And that is the type of situation we have in places like Sudan, the DRC, Somalia, and so on. Now, my take on it is that South Africa is already past the point of a soft state. We are in a full-blown weak state. And if things went wrong, then we may end up in a pattern of instability. And this instability may create an environment of what we call full-blown state failure.
Okay.
And I must...
Yeah, when you say when things go wrong, what for you is a manifestation of things go wrong?
Okay, a manifestation will be, let's say, the election. And the election process went wrong. And important political actors are dissatisfied with the outcome of the elections. And they resort to patterns of instability or violence. Or we have the type of scenario where KZN is saying we are not satisfied to be governed by the rest of South Africa. Mm-hmm. We would like to go our own way, or the same thing with the so-called Opstig movements we have in the Western Cape.
Okay. So if we take that example, the one you just gave about an election that is heavily contested after the election, right? I mean, wouldn't that same apply? Wouldn't that also then apply to what happened in the USA with Biden and Trump, where the parties contested the election well after the election, and there was, let's call it a riot of sorts that took place at the seat of power?
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between the United States and South Africa on many lines. I don't think the USA will qualify as a soft or a weak state. But what is absolutely a factor is that there's some of the deepest divisions in their history currently with the Trump factor on the one side and the Biden factor on the other side. And people are predicting patterns of instability, patterns of violence in the USA. Now, South Africa may experience similar patterns, but within a weaker state framework. And that may bring difficulties. Take into consideration that the USA is an established democracy since 1776. Mm-hmm. So they are a number of 100 years down the line. We only is a democracy for 30 years. And in many ways, the South African society is a deeply divided society. So there's the potential for instability. There's the potential for the type of breakaway patterns or instability. But if I'm saying all of
but again, South Africa's not unique at that in terms of being divided. What I'm saying, I'm not saying we're not. All I'm saying, and I gave the example of the USA, and I'll probably even say the same thing about Israel. You know that outside of what happened from October 7 and beyond, right, the period leading up to that period has had protests, massive protests, every weekend in Tel Aviv against the leader of the country, Benjamin Netanyahu. What I'm trying to say is that, and others I just can't remember, there are many examples of what you call divided societies, and we don't say they failing states or failed states.
Yeah, but you see, at least if you talk about the Israelis, their systems are functioning very well. If you look at our institutional frameworks, we are talking about 80% of all municipalities that are currently dysfunctional. We are talking about the provision of water that is becoming more and more problematic.
And we know that,
the provision of electricity is a huge problem at the moment. In fact, South Africa is developing in the direction where we are creating parallel structures, safety and security, infrastructural development. Even if you take the pattern of vigilantism, people are taking the law into their own hands and acting in a legal way.
Well, I think there I would concede. You're right. Parallel structures, for example, private security has only emerged in what has seemed to be the absence of police, the police force being able to police effectively. Then you look at now, for example, people going off the grid is another example of parallel structures, and we can extend that to a whole range of other issues. And therefore, that brings me to the question. So, if you talk about us being this weak state, but not quite the failing state, what then needs to happen now? Because we're talking in an election season, and I'm hoping that every single political party who actually is squabbling with each other, as I've been seeing every night on these many town hall debates trying to outdo each other, understands the need to put South Africa right on top of the agenda.
Well, my take on it is that we must definitely try to turn this around. And it is possible to turn it around. And to turn it around, we need to build capacity within the framework of the state. We need to institutionalize democratic principles and act accordingly. We need to root out corruption on all levels. So there's a lot of things that we can do. But at the moment, the ANC is very much a corrupt government that is not functioning effectively, that is killing capacity in terms of things like cadre deployment, policies that you cannot execute in a proper way, creating an environment that is not conducive for investments. And all of this is contributing to a very negative scenario.
Well, being critical of the ANC would be understandable because the ANC itself are critical of the ANC right now. They've openly admitted where they failed. But you're talking about institutionalizing democratic principles. Surely we have that already. I would have thought that's the one thing we have. Whatever our arguments are, we actually are absolutely sound with regard to democratic principles.
Okay, I think my definition at least of democracy is that it's a lot more than only elections. You need to look at things like limited government. And at the moment, the ANC is not a limited government. It's an extended government becoming a regime. And there are academic articles on that topic. Secondly, we can question if the government is functioning within the constitutional framework. If you just look at legislations like the Bella legislation, you talk about the Property Acts, Article 25 of the Constitution. So there's big questions about constitutional government. Then the whole principle of the rule of law. How do you get a scenario where political influential people are escaping the judiciary by making use of Stalingrad-type strategies, sometimes for more than 20 years? And I'm now referring to people like Jacob Zuma. But if you look at the Zondo Commission, you are basically talking about the whole top elite of the ANC. You cannot associate corruption with democratic principles. Another aspect of democracy is effectiveness and efficiency. When it comes to service delivery, when it comes to the infrastructure of the state, when it comes to borders And at the moment, we are talking about 6 million illegal immigrants within South Africa.
All right. So I think you've given a good case, a very sobering warning about the things that are going wrong, right? And I hear that, right? So we have an election coming up, right? What is the one thing you want to see coming out of this election?
Well, I would like to see governments in place that will act according to the public interest in terms of the common good. That's the ideal of any democracy.
And how would you know they're doing that?
Well, you need to keep them to their promises. They need to elect the right people. And maybe, although at this point in time coalition politics is a bit of a disaster when it comes to local government and specifically in some of the metros, I think that the ANC, out of an absolute majority, that seems to be the case at the moment, may bring in other role players and maybe some compromises on certain levels, and this may contribute to forms of good governance. But I am very concerned that I'm making these analyses in terms of the political environment, the economic environment, and the social environment. And it's clear that in the next 5 years, South Africa is going to face major challenges on many levels. So we need strong leadership, we need principled leadership, we need people that can work for the common good. And I must tell you, I am a bit concerned even with the election coming.
Okay, got that. Thank you for your time. Professor Andre Duvenage, Professor of Politics and an analyst based at the Northwest University. So there you are. The challenge is from a weak state to a failing state. We need strong leaders. We need principled leaders. We need leaders that put South Africa first. To paraphrase, do we have them? You have an election coming up. Can you identify them? Do we have them? Who are they? Let's get the news at 5 with Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. G4S to appeal court ruling and health expert defends Cuban doctors. Good afternoon to you. Private security company G4S intends to appeal a ruling by the High Court in Pretoria excluding it from fully participating in court proceedings relating to a court battle over the terminated Mangaung prison contract. Bloemfontein Correctional Contracts, which subcontracted G4S to operate the Mangaung prison in the Free State, is challenging last year's termination of the contract by the Justice and Correctional Services Department. The High Court has ruled that G4S cannot participate fully in the court proceedings as they were subcontracted by Bloemfontein Correctional Contracts, and the G4S cannot seek any financial relief from the department. Simpiwe Mabena reports.
The department and the Bloemfontein Correctional Contracts are engaged in a legal tussle over the terminated contract following the escape from Mangaung prison of convicted murderer and rapist Thabo Bester in May 2022. G4S believe that it should be part of the court proceedings. This as it seeks financial relief from the department following the termination of the contract. The private security company intends to lodge an appeal against the court's decision. The matter has now been postponed to an unspecified date to allow G4S to submit its application for leave to appeal. I am Simpiwe Mabena, SABC News, Pretoria.
UNISA says it's probing around 1,400 student disciplinary cases for academic dishonesty. There's been an outcry on cheating cases, with students blaming glitches in the online invigilator application. Briefing the media, the university's Vice Principal for Institutional Development, Ramohwai Mangano, says all cases relating to the app have been concluded and students have been given warning letters. He says they're continuing with cases related to academic dishonesty, mostly by postgraduate students.
The remaining cases, which are about 1,456, pertain to pure academic dishonesty, which includes, among others, plagiarism, non-adherence to Turnitin, which is a software that is used to check as to whether the submission includes plagiarism or any other copied material. And the formal hearings in this regard already have commenced on the 25th of March.
The Minister for Employment and Labour, Thulas Ngesi, says talks are underway to minimise job losses at the post office as 235 branches face closure. He was speaking during the launch of the Western Cape Labour Activation Programme in Cape Town.
There is a plan which is being put together, which is around the issue of retraining those workers who are still young and rediverting them. The post office is talking about digitization, and we think that retraining those workers and redirecting them into the new areas which demand these technical skills, digital skills, is going to be able to help. So they're not just going to be dumped.
Health expert Dr. José Letlape says Cuban doctors should not be blamed for the high unemployment among local doctors. This after the Gauteng Health Department faced backlash from the DA for its hiring of Cuban doctors in such an environment. Letlape says Cuban doctors have plugged the gap and worked in rural areas where local doctors are not prepared to go.
Those people that have been brought in, have they been brought in for special skills? When you come in and you're a young doctor, what special skills do you bring? Those are the issues that need to be analyzed so that we're not seen as being anti-other people and a violation of human rights. What is our human resource plan? Why have they been brought in? Are there South Africans that can do that, do a proper analysis?
A report by the UN Population Fund says racism and sexism continue to play a huge role in the health of women and girls. The BBC's Imogen Foulkes has more.
The UN report warns that progress on women's reproductive health has stalled. In 2016, 800 women a day died in childbirth. That figure remains the same today. The report calls for more investment in tailored approaches to fit specific communities, and for women and girls to be empowered to develop and decide their own solutions for reproductive health.
The top story, G4S intends to appeal a ruling by the High Court in Pretoria excluding it from fully participating in court proceedings relating to a court battle over the terminated Mangaung prison contract. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
Coming up in sports this hour, Kolisi named in Time 100 most influential people list and big clashes in UEFA Champions League. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash just after Geldnys Interchange. The N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview is queuing on both routes towards Gilulis Interchange, and Daspoort Tunnel in Pretoria is queuing at the tunnel. In KZN, the M13 eastbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions at the N3 Paradise Valley Interchange. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M7 is queuing at Bel Air Waxley Road Junction, and the N3 has roadworks with major upgrade works between Spaghetti Junction and the M13 Paradise Valley, so expect further delays. In Cape Town, the M5 northbound is slow moving, that's towards the N1 Kuburg Interchange. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound has a stationary truck reported just before the M5 Kuburg Interchange, and the M3 Philip Gosano Drive outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So here am I reflecting on the show, The National Pulse, that, we speak to a whole series of people, thought leaders, decision makers, leaders in their fields in industry. And then we also speak to you, the audience, the callers, the listeners, and it's fascinating how it plays out. You get the decision makers, you get the leaders who say certain things, and then you get you as part of the greater community of South Africa and around the world saying things, and often they're at odds with each other, because I think the public and how you express your views in many ways is a very honest, earnest opinion about finding the truths that you don't often see what comes through with the leadership, whoever the various leaderships we speak to at different times. Well, I'm just saying this because what I am saying is I appreciate fully the incredible diversity of callers, male, female. Maybe we need some younger ones too, but and sometimes first-time callers too, who call, who WhatsApp, who text, and who express strong opinions about many, many things. And I want to encourage that. Of course, if you make outrageous comments and you come on, we're going to challenge you. But fine, we still want to encourage the fact that you actually have strong views on issues and you actually want to challenge that. And perhaps part of that strong views is, what do you make of that conversation that I had with Professor Andre Duvenage, who's suggesting South Africa is a weak state and could well become a failing state or failed state by 2030, which is like 6 years away, right? Now, to connect with us, you can share your opinion about just that. If you heard the conversation, we'll put it up as a podcast as well shortly. To call in, 086 000 2032. To WhatsApp, you can do it in text form or voice note form, both ways, 0614 104 107. You can also post your comments. We can't always read them out live, but you can post them on the SFM Radio Facebook page, the live feed, as well as the SFM Radio live feed on the X platform as well. So we'll be chatting an update, that is, on the conversation we had around the Labour Party, and we'll do that shortly. But let's pick up some of the voice notes we've had.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Pito here from Hartswater. Tonight I'll be forced to watch Man United because my son is a big fan of Man United, but I would like to watch Arsenal. But I've got no options. I just have to abide to the rules of the young man. He's a big supporter of Man United. Thank you.
Man United, but they're not even playing, right? Man United wish they were playing in the Champions League. Okay, Arsenal is who you would like to be following, but you don't have much of a choice. Lovely, very interesting call about how decisions, family decisions are based upon the teams we follow. Here's another.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Listen, the application by the Labour Party to postpone the elections does not make sense at all. Political parties have already used their resources. They have already used their money to campaign, to buy T-shirts, to book venues for debates and other stuff, to make advertisements on the radio platforms. Therefore, there is no need for that thing of postponing elections. Besides, the president has already announced the date. Why should they challenge that now when the president has already done that? Let them waste their money, but they will not win this one. Team here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that call, Jim. I'll tell you what, you may be right, you may be wrong on the constitutionality of what they're challenging. But you'd be right about the fact that they're running out of serious time. And I can't see how the Labour Party will be able to challenge an election and be meaningful at that with so little time that's left for them to actually start. Let's get another call from Durban. Peter's on the line. Hi, Peter.
I find it a bit hard to pronounce your name. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Ashraf. So let me spell it out for you.
Ashraf.
Ashraf. Ashraf. Pronounced Ashraf, which, by the way, means noble, if that helps you, okay?
Okay, Ashraf. Yes, it helps me, yes.
Go ahead.
I must tell you that I absolutely agree with the professor's assessment, except in two things.
Okay.
It will happen long before 6 years. It will happen by 4 years. by the next general election. I can tell you now that next year, this time, you'll be paying 30 rand for a loaf of bread and 30 rand for a dollar.
Why are you so confident about your assessment?
Well, there are a couple of spoilers. Besides the government itself being totally corrupt, the legal system being totally corrupt.
Why do you say legal system being corrupt? I mean, I think government. Many people would agree that the ruling party's got many cases of corruption against them, but the legal system.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, if you find a legal system that has for 20 years postponed very important cases like Mr. Zuma's case constantly for 20 years, then there's something deeply wrong. I can tell you, I was in jail once. They knocked on my door and arrested me immediately and kept me there for 3 years. 3 years.
For three on what charge?
Not to my, that's personal. Never mind that. So I know that the legal system is broken. I know that.
Okay, but did you challenge them? I mean, did you if it was something that, as you said, they just kept you there for 3 years? Did you challenge them on that?
Sir, if you're a pensioner and you've got no money at all because they take your pension away when you go to jail. Whether you go to jail waiting trial or you go to jail as it, they take your pension away. So I had no access at all. I didn't even have access to ARVs. I made HIV positive for 3 years.
Okay.
But that's not my point. The point is this, that some actors that are going to create this environment that he was suggesting, where KwaZulu-Natal will try to be a place of its own, and then Cape Province will try to follow suit, and then there'll be things happening, is already running. Here's Mr. Zuma running on the MK platform.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of journalists, in particular the right-wing type of people, are saying Cape Province for Cape, make yourself a single state. So no, we definitely look at the state of our roads, look at the state of our food, look at the state of ammunition, railways, ports.
Okay. So you have any reason that you're saying, in fact, not 2030, by the next election, you said 4 years, in fact 5 years, right? Okay, got that.
Yeah, right.
I hope you're wrong. Exactly. Got that. Thank you for that call. Peter from Durban, right. In fact, we're going to move on, but keep the calls coming, keep the messages coming. Another one saying the ANC bankrupting the country. But put your names down when you do comment, okay? So, yeah, unless you want to remain anonymous, I understand. But otherwise, it's nice to put a name and where you're from as well. Like, which part of, like, not even Durban. If you're in Cape Town, say Claremont. So Claremont, Cape Town. So we have a better picture of being able to speak to the entire nation in one go, right? Okay, we'll get to Zwelaki and Noah as a caller. We'll get to you just now as well. But let me go back to the issue about the Labour Party. Now, we start the show at 3 o'clock. I had a chat at that time with the interim executive member of the Labour Party, that's the AMCU, that's Labour Union President Joseph Matunjwa, right? And the essence of the conversation is that they have challenged the IEC's decision to not allow them to contest this election, and they've taken it to the Constitutional Court, and they've asked for a postponement of the election. So I had a chat with him, and I raised a few important issues which I think you need to hear. We'll then get to Ralph Matlecha to comment on that in a moment. But first up, here's myself in conversation with Joseph Matunjwa. Okay, well, what do you want? I'm suggesting to you...
We want to contest.
You want to contest,
so
right?
If they say yes, if the Concord direct them to open or give us 6 hours or 12 hours, we will welcome that, because much of the job is been done. So rather than changing the whole table, of the IEC, I think that will be very much a big job for them. Instead of just giving us 6 hours or 12 hours to complete
Okay, so two questions.
That will be the easiest way.
So if the Concord then rules that in fact you can contest the election with no postponement, would you be ready for that?
Yes, we will be ready. We'll be ready. Remember, we paid their deposit, and then we uploaded, many of those signatures from different provinces and even national. The issue here was those signatures of the list of the people that we put on the list, and they just want the original. That's the only thing. But if the Concord can say we give a Labour Party 6 hours to conclude what was left, we are ready for them.
Okay. Number two, if Concord refuses to accede to your submission that the election must be postponed, and they also do not consider your case to go to the IEC and get Labour Party reinstated, what then can you do?
Then we have to go to our advocate who will give us a legal advice whether there is any other avenues that want to follow.
Have you not done that already? Because I would think there's such a time deadline.
We're still waiting. Yes, we're still waiting for the Concord. But we believe that the prospect of this case are very positive. Because, we were delayed for a month. If I was in the shoes of IEC, they could have pronounced this case in 2 days, like these other cases that they've been pronouncing with other parties. Why they dragged us for the whole month?
Okay, that's the voice of Joseph Matunjwa, the AMCU president and interim executive member of the Labour Party. They want a postponement of that May 29 election. Okay, let's try and understand it better, the implications thereof, with Dr. Ralph Matleka. Ralph, good chatting to you. It's been a while, so I'm glad we're finally talking.
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's a great pleasure. It's been a while indeed. It's a great pleasure. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Having said that, I'm going to give you the responsibility of telling us whether the Labour Party has a leg to stand on this issue.
Well, Ashraf, look, this is it's not the first time that you are going to have a political party having an issue with the timetable of the elections, talking about the signatures, being able to meet the deadline. It is not the first time that we are seeing this, and the concern as to where the elections, did we have enough time? Do we need enough time for political parties to prepare themselves? It's just never enough time, I will tell you. So I'm going back here to the previous elections, the local government elections. I think it was the November elections, where we had a concern for the 2021 November elections, local government elections. Remember, those elections were held during the time of the COVID under difficult circumstances.
Yes.
And there was a concern that we needed to postpone. But the court stood ground that actually almost ordered that, look, we have to go through those elections. It is because of the democratic principles of elections here. So the court will be very careful before they actually say that we change the timetable or you allow the party open up the system again. It's because of the integrity of the elections that you need to protect. You need to stick to the prescribed timetable so that all parties can be treated equally. So,
okay. So having said that, does the Labour Party have a case?
Look, Ashraf, they can complain, but I don't think they have any extraordinary case here that can result in the shift in the date.
Because their case is based, firstly, not on the postponement, first upon that they were not accepted to contest the election because they submitted their forms, but they didn't submit those signatures that are required because there was a system breakdown on that day. Does that carry any weight?
Yeah, Ashraf, you see, the reality is that this is the party that is struggling to meet the deadline, the prescribed requirement when it comes to the processes. So they missed it, and I was listening to Mr. Matunja talking to you that if the process is reopened and they can submit, they will be happy. But it's not like that. What about other parties that have known that and have been able to meet the deadline? So if there were many parties maybe with a huge concern similar to this, but to be honest, you have to protect the integrity of the election. You cannot just postpone because one party failed to meet the deadline of a process they've known about.
But does the Labour Party have a point, not so much about the postponement, about the fact that, they've been unfairly treated because the systems were down, and there clearly has to be some sympathy for them and other parties too?
Yeah, I mean, the courts will have to deal with that, Ashraf. If it can be indicated, no doubt. I mean, if it can be shown that that was a mass problem, that was a wider problem, I beg your pardon, then maybe the court will be sympathetic. It is very difficult. You can't just quickly open or reopen the process while some other parties have tried against all difficulties, whatever, to be able to meet that deadline. The integrity here is what matters. I think courts are very careful.
All right. Now, Joseph Matunjwa himself was suggesting that the courts take, they take far too long. I mean, I predict then you'd expect a very quick answer to this one?
It will have to be very quick. No doubt about it. The integrity of the election. You see, cases that have got related to this election, you need to answer them, deal with them expeditiously, to ensure that as the election day comes through, I'm not saying you're going to have zero dissatisfaction. You have got parties, all of them happy, but you are trying to remove all reasonable doubt or concern about this election to make sure that the integrity remains. And answering this thing quickly will be very interesting. It's what will be required.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Dr. Ralph Matqega, who's a political analyst and, giving his thoughts. In fact, suggesting Labour Party, well, it's not going to happen for you guys. That's what he's saying. You may have a completely different opinion on that one there. We're going to talk about WhatsApp in a moment.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, one of the things that we want to do is to play up the conversations around tech, artificial intelligence, marketing, branding when we get a chance, and other great business ideas to grow, to make more money for all of you, okay? So part of this innovation hub today is to talk about WhatsApp and the issue of good news, bad news around WhatsApp users now being able to have access to the new AI, artificial intelligence features on the app. I have not had the privilege. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what's being spoken about. I need to find out. My guest is Bataung Kotsakwane, who's the editor-in-chief and the lead researcher at iAfrican.com. Bataung, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and afternoon to all South Africans. Thank you for having me.
All right, so what has actually happened here? Because everybody uses WhatsApp.
Yes, so Ashraf, I think let's start in here for the benefit of our listeners. There's this new, I wouldn't say new, but AI has become a really important tool of labor, when you look at the digital economy, right? And a lot of companies are adopting AI in order to really, add onto the capacity and features of their products and services. Facebook, Meta is no exception. They have now, came to the front, and now they have unleashed their AI offering, which is Meta AI, and you now found it on WhatsApp. It was first available in 2003. We're now in the Southern Hemisphere having access to it, and yeah, I guess that's that, and that's exciting news.
Okay. Exciting, or as the lead suggested, good news or bad news? So is it all good news? Because what I want to know then is, how does that play out? So I'm a WhatsApp user, like everybody else, I think, listening, because it's just so ubiquitous, right? How will this AI feature assist me in my WhatsApp communications?
Okay, so Ashraf, let's start with the good news. So Ashraf, it's no secret, and I think for the benefit of our listeners, a lot of businesses use WhatsApp. One could argue that WhatsApp has even replaced emails. When you look into the amount of business transactions that are facilitated through WhatsApp. So this Meta AI for WhatsApp it pretty much allows you to have an automated chatbot, and the chatbot would learn your behavior as the user, and it would allow small SMEs and businesses to then have their own chatbot in order to automate responses. So this would work well in the services industry, industries like restaurants and many other sort of, that require, orders and so forth and so on.
So, in practical terms, when you say a chat bot, right? I'm just emphasizing the word bot because it may sound like a chat box, on air, right? I think banks do that already, isn't it? I mean, if you sort of go to a banking app and you just open it up, there's already a bot that communicates with you. I mean, are you talking about something like that we can develop for our own businesses right now that can effectively help us communicate with clients, but it's not me communicating, it's the bot communicating?
100%, Ashraf. We're already interacting with chatbots on a daily basis. The financial services sector, of course, through our apps, already automate sort of, please help me responses or inquiry responses. And you even see it with e-commerce now where you just before you check out on your cart, it reminds you, those are automated responses. So for that type of technology, it's now much more accessible to SMMEs and, let's say, the ordinary layman in the street.
And I think that's good because, if we all can use it. Well, here's the thing. Is there a downside to that?
Of course, look, the downside is privacy. Privacy, data. I think that's what a lot of people in the sector are really worried about. And it's not just Meta. It's a whole lot of other sort of, social media platforms that are now coming into the fore. I think you would remember I read it in around February 24, it went on its IPO. And they didn't make it a secret that, they'd be licensing its data to Google in order to help with its generative AI. So, it's the age-old privacy. What level of access do they have to my information, to my personal information? What are they learning about me? What are they learning in terms of my keystrokes, what I'm typing? Because you need that data set to be fed into the AI in order to automate and sort of, start preempting and auto fixing for you, So those are the challenges. So now, when you look at Meta has came out and said that has put in some AI privacy settings and security features that disallow third parties to have access to your data. But they haven't said anything, rather, on their own research in terms of them pulling your data for their own generative AI. Okay. And I think that's where we get the departure and disjointure.
And when you have it, let me know, because that's another story we need to follow, right? Bataunga Kotsakwane, the editor-in-chief and lead researcher at iAfrican.com. There we are. WhatsApp AI, what an alliance. I mean, that's like, two political parties coming together. Just think about that. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 5:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. A quick look at the headlines. G4S intends to appeal a ruling by the High Court in Pretoria excluding it from fully participating in court proceedings related to a court battle over the terminated Mangaung prison contract. The Home Affairs Minister says legislation must be introduced to strengthen the powers of immigration officers and make training compulsory. And Ukraine says at least 14 people have been killed in a Russian missile attack on the northern city of Chernihiv. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg is closed between Main Reef Road and Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash after Geldnys Interchange reported. In Bedfordview, the N12 R24 westbound is queuing traffic on both routes towards Giluli's Interchange, and the N3 southbound has a stationary truck near Van Buren Road. Then Van der Hof Road in Pretoria has a crash reported. That's between Hornsneck Road and Theo Slabbert Avenue. In KZN, the M13 westbound in Hillcrest is queuing towards Old Main Road exit. The M7 is queuing at Bel Air Wakesley Road junction. The N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle just before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction and Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. Tygerberg Road eastbound in Durbanville is queuing towards Racecourse Road, and Brighton Road in Kraaifontein is slow moving at the N1 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So, to me, what do we say? Siya Kolisi, it's time.
Siya Kolisi, it's time. Well, Springbok World Cup winning captain Siya Kolisi has been named on Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2024. Kolisi is named among the innovators on Time's 100 list, which serves to highlight the world's most influential people each year. Some of the world's most recognizable names are on the list, or the Time list, include Jenny Hermoso, the female footballer who plays for Spain, Patrick Mahomes, who plays American football, and Max Verstappen. And he's obviously the F1 champion. And a big congratulations to Siya Kolisi. I mean, his character.
There's a champion. I mean, I speak about champion people building champion nations. Classic example of that.
A champion of note. Then today marks 100 days to go to the 2024 Paris Olympics, and preparations for the Games is entering the final stretch. The Olympic torch was lit yesterday in ancient Olympia, and all permanent infrastructures for the Games are now ready, and the building of temporary sites has started in Paris. Now you can catch the action live on SABC Sport from the 26th of July through to the 11th of August. Then in cricket, the Proteas women posted 301 for 5 in their 50 overs in the third and the last ODI against Sri Lanka today, and captain Laura Vervaard continued with her fine form, leading from the front, top scoring for South Africa at 184 from 147 balls. It's her third century since taking over the captaincy and 6th overall, and she's officially South Africa's leading run scorer in ODI cricket. It's also a special one for Ayabonga Kaka, who's making her 100th appearance in the ODI format. That makes her the first black African woman and only third black African cricketer to achieve a century of matches in the 50 over format in South Africa cricket. So you can imagine my heart is smiling, my heart is brimming with smile, because women in sport keep on.
You need to highlight women in sport regularly.
I will.
And you like cricket?
And I love cricket.
Okay.
Cricket is my thing. Well, moving on to football, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola confirmed that Kyle Walker and Nathan Ake will be available for selection against Real Madrid, but doesn't know yet when one or both will be fit enough to start. Walker has missed the last 4 City matches with a hamstring injury picked up on England duty last month, but was in the matchday squad against Luton. City and Madrid head into that second leg of the Champions League quarter-final level at 3-3 all, and the other clash sees Bayern Munich hosting Arsenal with kickoff at 9 p.m. Yeah?
You want me to say something? Well, all I can say about that Champions, because this is what I'm thinking as I listen to those two classic matches, and I'll see how many people get offended by this in the country. The similarities between Manchester United and Kaizer Chiefs.
You
That's
had
all.
to bring Manchester United into
and
this.
Kaizer Chiefs, I'm saying. Google the similarities, you'll see.
Well, anything's all for tennis news. Andy Murray has been named on the entry list for the French Open. Murray ruptured an ankle ligament at the Miami Open last month, and the French Open starts on the 26th of May. Murray has played at Roland Garros only once since hip resurfacing surgery in 2019, losing in the first round in 2020. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. More sports tomorrow morning was Khan. Other than that, ke nna Tuming Kapele. Modimo ke yo.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And of course, she said a prayer, as she has promised she'll do, and not leave it out like the other day, right? Okay, let's get on to other issues about prayers for the markets, right? There's an issue about interest rates, I know, which is always something you'd look at when inflation sort of just gets a bit stable or goes down, maybe. But let me not say much. Let's get to the experts. Jimmy Moyaya hosts the MoneyWeb Market Update. So, Jimmy, you tell us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to me. Good afternoon to the listeners. The markets are certainly in need of some serious prayers. The rand isn't doing so well. The inflation print came out today worse than expected, but still cooling. So hopefully that is a sign that we're moving in the right direction. But what we have on the show today is a conversation with National Treasury. There was an IMF report released around the transparency of fiscal all the state of the fiscal policies and direction in South Africa. So we're going to dig into that report with National Treasury themselves, and then we've got a conversation with Alan Gray around investing in uncertain times. I think it's a perfectly timed conversation considering all of the uncertainties that persist in the market. And then on Wednesdays, we tend to have a couple of features. We have our Executive Lounge feature, and I'm chatting to the CEO and Fund Principal Officer at FedHealth, Jeremy Yatt, around what he gets up to when he's not running a medical aid company. And then we've also got our Warning Wednesdays consumer awareness features that we do as often as we can, and we speak to the FSCA and other institutions around just consumer things that we need to be aware of, or concerns, schemes, scams, things we just need to keep our eye on so that we don't make the wrong kinds of decisions. And I'm joined on today's show by the FSCA to just reflect on some of the new warnings they've issued, some of the new threats that they are seeing come up in financial services, as well as how consumers can better protect themselves. But before we get to all of those things, as I said, the markets have had quite an interesting day. Some markets better than others, but all in all, not such a good run. And Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on those markets for us throughout the day. He joins me now to just do a quick summary of the markets. Good afternoon, Henku. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. It looks as though the Brent crude price is finally back below $90, but nothing much else to smile about.
Yes, Jimmy, you're absolutely right. Good evening to you and to Ashraf and to me. Good evening to all the listeners. Yes, not much to smile about. We did see that the JSE traded on the upside most of the day, but then here in the 11th hour, right at the end, it decided to finish and close unchanged. But let's start off by looking at US stocks, because yesterday we had a torrid day here by us, and it seems like it's actually US markets that's the most down today. If we compare that to European stocks as well as our local ones, the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 currently trading 0.3% weaker, and the Nasdaq is losing 0.4%. And then those European stocks like the FTSE 100 and the DAX each gained 0.5%, and the CAC 40 finished the day 0.8% stronger. Then, as I mentioned, the JSE traded in the green for most of the afternoon and then finished unchanged at a level of 72,995,000 points. And that's very close to the level it opened this morning at 73,000 points, and the same level as on which it closed yesterday. But we did see that the industrial index lost 0.5% and the financial index was 1.7% weaker, and then that resources index came back fighting today and it finished 3% stronger. Anglo assisted with this because Anglo finished the day 4% up, Richmond 2.7% up, Glencore gained 2%, and Goldfields was 1% stronger. But some companies that gave poor performances today were Thungela, Absa, MTN and Old Mutual. Thungela finished the day 6% weaker, Absa lost 5.5%, MTN 4.5% down, and Old Mutual lost 4% today, followed by Standard Bank and Shoprite, as well as 91 and Bidcorp, each finishing the day 2.5% weaker. But then again, on the positive side of things, Implats had a great day and gained 9%. Sibanye-Stillwater finished 5.5% stronger, and Anglo Gold, Harmony, as well as Exxaro each gained 3%. On the commodities market, the price of gold currently $2,390 an ounce, silver $28.70, platinum $955, and palladium $1,040. The price of Brent crude now on the dot $89 a barrel. If we move over to the rand, you'll pay 19 rand and 5 cents for a US dollar, 23 rand 73 for a pound, 20 rand 26 for a euro, and 12 rand 24 for an Australian dollar. Bitcoin coming down a bit today, you'll find, because now it's sitting at $61,000, and that is 1,180,000 rand. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed today.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. As you're saying this, I'm just going through a bunch of banking stocks, and for the month of April, it seems as though almost all the banks are down north of 5%. Interesting to look at that. We'll dig into that and other stories when we come back a little later on. But for now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Well, thanks for that, yeah, and enjoy your show coming up after 6, right? By the way, I had a chat with Sipho Sithole earlier, remember on, and I said he's in Washington, and he's a lecturer at Howard University in Washington, D.C. in the Department of World Languages and Cultures. And the plan is to be there for the next 7 years. And then he'll come back home and hopefully add to developments in our country, as perhaps would be the same with Zaki Ahmad. I'm mentioning him specifically because of the role he's played around the treatment action campaign and many other things. Well, he's an independent standing in the election, and he's our featured guest tomorrow in the election monitor, in the build-up to the election. So after 5 tomorrow, we got him for about 35, 40 minutes. Do not miss that conversation with Zaki Ahmad. Let's get to some of the callers now. We've got an interesting story to end with around a person doing some great work to raise funds for students' access to universities. Very important one. But for now, further comments on some of the issues we've raised, including the Labour Party. Zwelaki's on the line. Hi, Zwelaki.
Hi, Ashraf and SAFM viewers.
Well, thanks for joining the National Pulse, because you have. Go ahead. Yeah.
You see, Ashraf, listening to Mr. Matunjana, I must put it on record that I'm one of the parties that are affected from African Alliance of Social Democrats, which makes the 5 parties that adverse findings by the neutral court, the trick to speak. But in listening to him, it will give you a clear picture that indeed that technology has become our enemy of late for the 5 parties, and I would want to also add Arise South Africa, because we are affected by the technology, and it was for the first time that these requirements were made, and then in trying to make those things. But I really wanted to give picture around that issue.
Okay, so firstly, the fact that you're saying you're affected by technology, and I hear that, but surely I think one of the issues right now is technology is the currency of the world today. So if political parties want to stand for election and represent people in parliament, one of the issues is to be ahead of the curve with regard to technology, right?
Trust to me, Ashraf, we are 10 times ahead. We're doing everything just fine. We started on Saturday. We made uploads. We made everything that was needed to. The system on itself, on the side of the IEC, couldn't handle the pressure on the day. And we made numerous phone calls which are not disputed by the Commission. We've made numerous attempts to get them to do things right. But what I really want to give South Africans to kind of understand in this entire issue itself, the IEC itself doesn't understand their system, period. Look into the issue of Arise and Zanzibar. Let's leave ourselves on that of Labour Party. Arise South Africa did submit the regional list. Nothing was happening.
Wait, are you saying Arise SA or Arise Mzansi? I think you use both in one sentence.
Arise SA, I'm confusing.
Okay, I know you have, so that's why I want clarity, yes. Okay.
Yeah. You look, they have submitted 2-3 days. When they make an inquiry, where is our original list? It's only then when the IEC says that there is something wrong with their system. They say it's an administrative error. This is something that really would show South Africans that even the IEC itself, the system itself, could not comprehend the requirements. We did everything right and everything was done correctly. But what I really want to give South Africans, just to these limitations which are brought by technology onto our side, is that the test that was put before the court, the electoral court, which I believe that the majority disabused themselves from, was to try to understand the rights of a political party as a juristic person in terms of Section 9 in the Bill of Rights, and the rights of the members of the party as enshrined, and those of the supporters that will have filled everything. Because if you look at the issues around everything, we did meet the signature requirement, we did upload the required number of valid supporters. The only problem that political parties were having with was when they were uploading their list. And the other thing that you really need to bring into your understanding, Ashraf, I don't want to waste time.
Yeah, we need to.
In 2021, there were 257 local IEC offices where walk-in submissions were to be done, 9 provincial offices and 1 national office. And the online system closed at 9 o'clock in the evening. In 2024, 1 national office, no local office, no provincial office, and the online submission closes at 5 o'clock and that of the physical walk-ins. And then you say that is just justifiable in nature. You look that into in terms of the geographic landscape to say those who are in Covimvava in the Eastern Cape, if they were to want to make a physical submissions, they would have been disadvantaged compared to those who are sitting in Mavopan. In
Okay, Zwelakhe, we need to wrap up. I'm going to give you 15 seconds to answer this. So, having said all that you've said, right, what's your feelings? What's the next step for you? In 15 seconds.
We head into Concord like the Labour Party is doing. We will be filing our papers, I think, by close of business tomorrow. Okay. Everything of ours will be in the Labour Party.
All right, so this got that. The same journey. Got that. Thanks for that, Zwelakhe. In fact, we've had a few other responses around some of the issues. There's a long anonymous text. I can't read this thing. It's just too long. But it says, Ashraf, the problem of Palestine started way back before 48, I think it is. Study it yourself, see who killed who, but there's a long, and I can't read it all, but the important one, he said, read Edward Said, the Palestinian, remember, who died. There's this hugely influential author called Edward Said, said, read him and you'll know the story. Okay, got that one. Let's get to another call. Eunice, in fact, wants to respond to Mike, which I would think would be on the same subject. Eunice, go ahead. Hi.
Yes, Ashraf. Look, Mike, first of all, contradicts himself when he says he's not too clued with the topic of Israel and Palestine, and then he has an opinion on the matter. So, like you rightfully said, he must go and he himself said he would like to do some reading, which he ought to do, and Mike should know. There's a cliche that says, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to talk and remove all doubt.
Okay.
You just quoted Edward Said.
Yeah.
Edward Said, yes, he's a professor. He was a Christian professor, by the way. He died with the keys of his ancestral house in his hands, which means he was driven out of his own house, for Mike's information. I've never heard Mike, for example, condemning Israel for the slaughter, in the current slaughter, 15,000 children that have been slaughtered there in the Gaza Strip. I haven't heard Mike one day talking about that. Mike always talks that he was an anti-apartheid activist. May I remind him, during the height of apartheid, Mike, were any little kids, 8 or 10-year-old kids, tried in a military court by the apartheid government in South Africa? No, it happens in Israel right now, and they're still being detained. So Mike can waffle and waffle, but really sometimes he's got to think it out before he gets onto the air. He should be eternally grateful every morning, Ashraf. Make a prayer that with all our 1,000 problems in this country, that Mike should be eternally grateful to the indigenous people of this country that they did not drive him into the sea and did not kick him out of his house after 1994. And he should be thankful for that. Lastly, Ashraf, he talks of a small country like Israel.
Quickly, yeah.
Yes, and he says that, why the Iranians attacked Israel. He doesn't condemn the Israelis having attacked the Iranian consulate in Syria.
Well, it's a point that I've made, as you know. But
Yes.
So here's the point. Mike's made his point, but he also conceded that ultimately said, I don't know much about it. So I think more beyond that, there's not much to say to Mike about Mike. He's got his own message, I think. Eunice, thanks for that call. But I think the bottom line to all of this, for all of us, right, is we have to be well researched, especially on complex issues. If you don't, you can't say much. And I concur with you on that one there. Eunice from Joburg, right? Thanks for that call, Eunice. And the person who spoke about Edward Said said it's Rohan who actually made that point, just saying, sorry, I did not put my name. Please put your names. Always like to hear that. We're going to chat to Dr. Mariki Lutz coming up in a moment.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
In fact, we've had a listener saying, what is the name of this program? So it's called The National Pulse, P-U-L-S-E, The National Pulse. And we call it that because the plan is to reflect the issues that reflects the national pulse in our country. What gets us thinking? What gets our pulses racing? What are the biggest issues in the country every single day? And we reflect that. That's why the national pulse. Okay, but there's also issues about exclusion and inclusion and who goes where. Now, we find this a really fascinating story about an attempt being made to raise funds for university students, and there's a whole story around that. So let's get to, firstly, let me welcome Dr. Mariki Lutz, who's a first-year chemistry lecturer at Marty's, Stellenbosch University. Good chatting to you, Dr. Lutz. Appreciate your time.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity of talking to you today.
Thank you. Now you are this chemistry lecturer who wants to go cycling for 600 kilometers. Give me the connection.
Yes. So this is actually, what a privilege to join this. For me to share this campaign and this challenge and this journey with you. My family and I have cycled 600 kilometers over Easter weekend, actually. We took 6 days to cycle the 600 kilometers, and it was all, to make people aware of students in need of financial support, and I'm talking about bright students in need of financial support, and also, we know there's so many students in need of just the basics like food. So I decided to tackle this challenge over Easter weekend to start, raising funds and giving people the opportunity who had the privilege of receiving tertiary education, the opportunity to give something back to these bright students, hardworking students who need some financial support in order to.
All right. So I think your target was 60,000 rands,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
And you've done the challenge already, right? I mean, the 6-day challenge that started, so that's completed. So you were fit enough. You're all fine, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Has the target been met?
We've reached a point where we have about 40,000 rand now, and we have a few initiatives that we have in mind to try and get to the 60,000 or even more than the 60,000.
Yeah, and this is for one student, right?
Yeah, so that would bring one student through at least 1 year of undergrad studies.
Yeah, can you tell me more about that student?
Okay, so the initiative was. It started out when I met with a student in my first year class 2 years ago. His name is actually Blessed. A very bright student. He got above an average of 75% in his first year chemistry. But then I realized that this student does not have food on the table at that stage. He was about to be kicked out of his accommodation. And somehow my paths crossed with this student, and I realized I need to start doing something to help students in his situation. So he was fortunate enough to somehow we managed to get an NGO to help him through his first year and eventually through his second year, and he's in his third year now.
And I think that's something that we often tend to forget, that one thing is having access to education, in terms of grades coming from very, very disadvantaged backgrounds. But the other is the lifestyle challenges that one faces when, say, leaving a rural community to get to university with no support whatsoever. And I mean, yours is an example of that, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, this student, the first time I met him, he was on his way to write his first test, and he was actually, unfortunately, just a week before that, he was robbed from his cell phone and his bag and everything. So he already had challenges when he arrived at Stellenbosch within the first term. So there's a lot of challenges that we're not always even aware of. That students struggle with, and they actually have to focus on their academic career.
Yeah, true. Okay, what in terms of now you got 40,000 rands, so there's a 20,000 shortfall. Right, give us a contact number, portal, whatever it is that somebody listening to say, hold it, man, I want to champion this cause.
Yeah, thank you so much for that opportunity. So I'm going to give you my cell phone number, and I'm also going to give you my email address. We're working through a Give and Gain campaign, but anyone can contact me on 083 39 11106. That's 083 39 11106. Or my email address is mlutz, it's MLUTZ, at sun. Which is sun.ac.za.
Okay, got that. And tell you what, I mean, feel free to even tag SAFM Radio and myself, by the way, on social media platforms, and I'll gladly share that too.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. There we are. Fascinating story there of Dr. Mariki Lutz. Impressed enough by a student, Blessed Muyanga. Has done well, but huge challenges around financial issues, and they needed 60,000 rands, and she's embarked on this cycling 600-kilometer cycling trip over 6 days with a torn hip labrum to in fact raise the awareness around the issue, right? There's a range of text and voice notes. Tafara saying, Ashraf, when it comes to international politics, it will be hypocritical of us all South Africans to call out the duplicity of the US without doing the same with our very own government, which also applies double standards and its foreign affairs dealings example towards human rights abuses in Gaza, Zimbabwe, and the Ukraine, right? That's one. There's another one. The USA took a stance way too early to support Israel attacking Palestinians, and later the Iranian embassy. Do we really believe they'll suddenly change? No. It says upping the sanctions, anti versus Iran is not surprising to me. There is no duplicity here. The US is doing just what any support of Israel would do, from somebody called T in Vryheid. Right, we've got about a minute or so. Let's see if we can play a couple of quick voice notes.
Hi, Ashraf. This is my Connors from Johannesburg. By the way, you are Manchester United supporter, exactly like myself. And I've been pondering with this issue of the similarities between Manchester United and Kaizer Chiefs. But lucky enough, in South Africa, I support Orlando Pirates. So that makes it better for me. Good luck, Ashraf. I just thought, let me just highlight that. And I was listening to you just now. Enjoy the evening.
Well, there you are. If you support Pirates, but even Pirates are, at the moment, Sundowns are Manchester City. You get my point, right? Okay, let's get another voice note quickly.
Hello, Ashraf. I think it's almost similar to a case where a bank, if you go to the bank and you make a certain payment online, sometimes it doesn't reflect, the payment doesn't reflect, and you find out that these guys have got a disclaimer. They say, well, you cannot go back to them. So how do we deal with this issue? Because they seem to be falling along the same lines, because the IEC may not actually be in charge of the systems of IT, or rather on the networks. So is that to be blamed on them?
Okay, got that. Let's see what happens. Let's see what comes out of that conversation. Let's end the show then with a parting shot. Not so much the passing shot, but the parting shot. And this is a Chinese proverb. Listen to this one. Be not afraid of growing slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. Think about that. Tomorrow, Zaki Ahmad is the featured guest in the Election Monitor after 5 o'clock. Do not miss that. Do not miss the Money Web show hosted by Jimmy Muyaha, which follows immediately after tonight. Follows the news, in fact, which comes up now, right? Thanks to my team. That's Patrick, Lebo, Vusani, and Temba. And thanks to you. Very much a part of the National Pulse. You make us tick. Goodbye. Good night. Here's the news at 6.
Call to boost powers of immigration officers and 14 people killed in a Russia attack in Ukraine. Good evening. The Home Affairs Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, says legislation must be introduced to strengthen the powers of immigration officers and make training compulsory. He briefed the media on the final white paper on citizenship, immigration and refugee protection in Pretoria, which seeks to provide a framework to guide the granting of citizenship and residency to foreign nationals.
The majority of members of the inspectorate must have legal qualifications and policing experience. The recent publication of the National Labour Migration Policy, introducing quotas for employment of foreign nationals, will go a long way in diffusing simmering tensions between South African citizens and foreign nationals. When the Immigration Act was enacted, provision was made for the establishment of immigration courts.
Private security company G4S intends to appeal a ruling by the High Court in Pretoria excluding it from fully participating in court proceedings related to a court battle over the terminated Mangaung prison contract. Bloemfontein Correctional Contracts, which subcontracted G4S to operate the Mangaung prison in the Free State, is challenging last year's termination of that contract by the Justice and Correctional Services Department. The High Court has ruled that G4S cannot participate fully in the court proceedings as they were subcontracted by Bloemfontein Correctional Contracts, and the G4S cannot seek any financial relief from the department. Simpiwe Mabena reports.
The department and the Bloemfontein Correctional Contracts are engaged in a legal tussle over the terminated contract following the escape from Mangaung prison of convicted murderer and rapist Thabo Bester in May 2022. G4S believes that it should be part of the court proceedings. This as it seeks financial relief from the department following the termination of the contract. The private security company intends to lodge an appeal against the court's decision. The matter has now been postponed to an unspecified date to allow G4S to submit its application for leave to appeal. I am Simpio Mapena, SABC News, Pretoria.
Teaching and learning in the white hazy